Temperatures have risen 60 years ago and have become a threat to human health and food production. The temperature in Baghdad reached 51 degrees Celsius during July, and the temperature above the Arctic Circle was 38 degrees during the same month. Australia also surpassed its hottest summer on record, as the sky turned deep red as a result of bushfires fanned by a prolonged drought. During 150 years of industrial activity, the burning of coal, oil, and fuels has caused the emission of greenhouse gases, GHGs, and their diffusion into the atmosphere, resulting in record-high global average temperatures. The frequency and duration of heat waves has increased in almost all parts of the world, compared to the case 70 years ago. But the effects of global warming do not affect all its inhabitants equally. If you are poor and marginal, you are likely to suffer more from extreme temperatures, as you may not be able to have an air conditioner, or even have electricity when you need it in the first place. You may also have no choice but to work outside in the scorching sun, which makes your knees unable to hold you before you delirium. Also, the high temperature may cause severe drought, and no matter how hard you work in the sun, the crop you planted will wither, and your children will suffer from hunger. It will not be easy to pack your bags and leave. Planting corn on the mountain, you need to shower several times a day if water is available, and you also need to moisturize your child's skin to protect it from heat rash. You can sleep outside when the power goes out, if you can bear the stings of the midge, and you may also be sitting in front of the fan alone and you suffer from the double danger of being alone and heat. Extreme warming is not a future danger, but rather a danger we already face today. It threatens human health, food production, and the fate of the economies of entire countries, and its effect is worse for those at the bottom of the economic ladder in their societies. Imagine what it would be like to live with a danger that is the greatest and most invisible in modern times. Below are some personal accounts from disadvantaged communities in Greece, Nigeria, Guatemala, and India, as well as those of some elderly people in the United States of America. Athens, heat waves are accelerating. Hasib Hotak, 21, used to sleep on the roof of a house in Athens. There is a small room on the roof with a tin ceiling and only a curtain door. The heat of the day makes the room a furnace, and its air is stifling, making it impossible to sleep inside. Hotak was 16 when he left his home in the Shulgara district of Afghanistan, the only one of 11 brothers and sisters to do so. After his attempt to cross into Europe failed, and after living for 2 years in a refugee camp, he was granted asylum in Greece, staying with a friend on the rooftop of a house in the densely populated Kolanos neighborhood, a working-class district of Athens where many immigrants settled. The city increased with the beginning of the decade, as the temperature records inside the Athens National Observatory showed that the number of hot days, that is, in which the temperature exceeds 37 degrees, was less than 20 days annually during the first decade of the 20th century, and by the mid-1980s nearly the number of hot days is 50, but the number increased to 120 during the period between 2006 and 2017. Nigeria, a village that knows no darkness. It never gets dark over the village of Faith Ose, who is in her mid-30s. 5 columns of methane light up Abricum, in the heart of the oil-rich triangle in southeastern Nigeria, where Faith lives with her husband and children. These pillars are part of the huge petrochemical operations carried out by the Italian multinational company Agip. All-day combustion takes place in steamy tropical air. The weather is usually hot, with an average temperature of 33 degrees during the summer, only dropping slightly during the months when it rains. These operations increase the temperature of the air, even during the night hours, especially if you are poor, so that you can only live within the scope of these operations due to the low prices of land there. One study shows that temperatures were 12 degrees higher in the vicinity of homes closest to these combustion processes. Faith works under the scorching sun in the cassava fields, before returning exhausted to a hotter home, to care for her rash children most of the year. This dangerous climate change is already affecting the poorest people in Nigeria, such as Faith and her family, where super hot days and nights are increasing, while temperate days and nights are decreasing, a trend observed by studies in West Africa. Guatemala, heat spoils crops. The 38-year-old is an indigenous Guatemalan, short of the Mayan, who live in one of the poorest and dirtiest areas of the Americas known as the Dry Corridor. Rising temperatures are destroying the earth, coupled with a noticeable decrease in precipitation at the beginning of summer over the past few years. The region has been hit by 5 severe, prolonged droughts at the end of summer over the past decade. The temperature in the country as a whole has also increased by about 1 degree Celsius since 1960, and the hot days and nights have increased and prolonged. Rock says that rain doesn't come when he needs it to irrigate his crop. The average amount of greenhouse gases per person in Guatemala is small, at 1.1 metric tons, compared to 16.5 tons per person in the United States, but the impact of warming on the planet is more felt in Guatemala. The yield of maize and bean crops is likely to decline by about 14% by 2050, according to a recently published study. It is unlikely that coffee beans, which are grown in low-lying areas, will be economically viable. India, hot weather is getting dangerous. Rapida bends down to fill a bowl of sand, lifts it and holds it on her head, and walks up the stairs. They do this countless times each day, even as the air temperature and humidity rise during daylight hours. Her legs hurt from climbing the stairs, and her head sometimes gets dizzy. Breaks cannot exceed 5 minutes, otherwise you will receive a reprimand from the foreman at the construction site. She and her husband, Ashok Kumar, belong to the untouchable caste, which is at the lowest rung of the Hindu social ladder, and is paid less than half that of a man. The incidence of extreme heat waves accompanied by humidity has doubled since 1979, to a point that the human body cannot tolerate for long, continuous hours, according to a recent research paper. The International Labour Organization, ILO, classifies heat as a particular health risk to construction workers like rapida. Most people can only work at half their capacity when the temperature exceeds 33 degrees, and exposure to intense heat for long hours can be fatal, according to the organization. It is expected that the economic losses resulting from global warming will increase to reach $2.4 trillion in 2030, but it is also expected that this cost will be unevenly distributed, as South Asia and West Africa will be the two regions most affected, not only due to the increase in temperature and humidity, but also because of the deteriorating conditions of workers like rapida. The United States, heat is more dangerous for the elderly. On a sweltering July Sunday when the temperature reached 34 degrees, 66-year-old Rafael Velasquez sat in his yard with a bottle of cold water on his face. He loved sitting outside on a wooden bench and feeding the pigeons, while wiping his constantly soaking sweat with a towel. There was nothing to do indoors, he couldn't afford an air conditioner, and he didn't know how he could get a free air conditioner under a local program aimed at helping the elderly stay cool during the pandemic that has shut down most cooling centers. In the United States, warming kills more seniors than any other strong weather event, including hurricanes. The problem is part of a disgraceful nationalist pattern, with African and Hispanic citizens like Velasquez often living in the hotter parts of American cities. Inequality increases climate and environmental risks, said Kizzy Charles Guzman, Deputy Director of Resilience in the New York Mayor's Office. A recent academic study estimates that about 12,000 people have died due to heat-related diseases, 80%.